Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan and welcome to Gyaan YouTube channel. And we have been discussing about checkmates in chess, and we've covered about different squares where checkmate has happened. And in this particular episode, we are going to be talking about checkmates that happen on the C2 square of the chessboard. That's why this episode is titled Can Do C2 Square. And before we go and look at examples where there's a checkmate on C2 square, I would like to show you the solution to the puzzle that I'd shared on the previous episode where we were talking about checkmates that happen on the D2 square. So this was the position that I'd given on the previous video. If you haven't yet watched it, I would recommend you to go check that out. And there, this was black to play, and I had mentioned black has a forcing way to win this game or deliver a checkmate. And there are two possible solutions. So if you had found either way to reach the D2 checkmate, it's good. I'll first show you the alternate solution, the one that was not played in the game, and that was queen h4 check. The point of it being after queen h4, you go g2, and after queen h2, it's king f1, and then you have this knight g3 check. Complete domination of your attacking wicket pieces, all are aiming at the white king, and fg3 is forced, and now you give a double check with knight d2, and it's a checkmate. So this is the alternate solution. And in the game, black slightly twisted the move order and got the same result, if I have to say. So black started with knight g3 check. And here white has two options. In the game, white took f takes g3, which we will cover later. First, let me look what happens if king g2. And here black is a beautiful move, which is knight f1 check. And now, king takes f1 is kind of forced, right? You don't want to go king h1 because then it's basically just a simple checkmate with queen h4, knight h3, queen takes h3. It's a checkmate. So if king takes f1, then comes knight h2 check, and the king can't go anywhere because this square and this square both are, let me draw them in red arrows because both of those squares are controlled by this queen. So, white king can't step there and it's a checkmate. So for knight g3 check, white has to play f takes g3, and now we play queen h5. After king g2, we go queen h2, and after king f1, we see the same double check idea, which starts with knight d2, and it's a checkmate. So that's basically the solution for the puzzle from the previous episode. So now let's move on to the new content where we are going to be talking about checkmates that happen on the c2 square. So I'd like to start with something very, very simple and very easy. It's black to play. I would highly recommend everyone to pause the video and try to find the solution and then continue watching. I hope you everyone have found the solution by now. Let me reveal what move black played. And as it was mentioned in the topic of this video, it's a checkmate in one. So the some piece has to land on this square. And here the only piece that can land is the knight. So knight c2, and it is a checkmate because the king cannot go to a2 because this bishop is controlling the square and the king is under check and you can't do anything about this knight. So it's a checkmate. So that was a very simple checkmate. So now let's move on to the next example that we have. This is slightly more complicated as you could see, like white's king is terribly weak, but also at the same time, if it's white's turn to move, you're going to be looking at some sort of different checks. So black has to act very quick. And as I've said in many videos before, when you're trying to find checkmates, I think the easiest tip that I can share is that look for forcing moves and more specifically look for checks, captures, because many, starting out players, young players, what they miss is they miss some good checks or good captures. Even if you place a piece right next to something where you could be captured, they think, oh, it's maybe poisoned or I can't capture it. And then they kind of pass on the opportunity to capture it. So I would highly, highly recommend the players, young players especially, to practice a lot of capturing and giving checks. In this position, one such check wins the game for black, and that is before I reveal the solution, I'll give you a few seconds for you to think about it because there are quite a few interesting checks if you think about it. You can go bishop g3, check the king. You could go rook b1, check the king. You could go Queen g3, check the king. Unfortunately, checks like queen e2 or queen d2 are just terrible because there's a queen defending the e2 square and there's a bishop defending the d2 square. So those two checks don't work. And also there's also bishop c3 check. So with so many different checks possibilities, Black definitely has to make a choice because some of them, are, as I said, are just terrible. And let me reveal the brilliant move that Grandmaster Peter Swidler played, and that is bishop c3 check. So the idea of this check is that did he just plunder a piece black? No, he did not, because if you play queen takes c3, like in the analysis that you're going to see, if queen takes c3 is played, then you give a checkmate on e2. So basically, by giving a check and queen c3, you have distracted the queen, which was on c4, doing the defending duty on the e2 square. Now that the queen has moved, you give a deliver a checkmate. What if bishop just goes d2 and blocks? You know, as we know, when your king is under check, you can either, if possible, capture the checked piece or move the king away or block the check. So this is blocking the check, but then you just simply capture and it's a checkmate. And in the previous attempt by white, we saw what if we capture the checked piece. And so the third option is moving away from the check, and that is king d1. But now this bishop acts as a barrier between this queen and this queen. So here queen c2 check, and white can't play queen takes c2 because it's a bishop in between and it's a checkmate. So that's how this game concluded. So let me move on to the next example over here. So this position is white to play. So let me flip the board, and it's a leads to a very forced checkmate and something very structured, I would say. It's kind of like, a very nice intuitive checkmate. So definitely do spend few minutes to calculate and figure out all the good checks. And once you have a good idea what you would be playing, then once you have paused the video, and then you can unpause and watch the solution here. So the solution here starts with e6 check. So now for e6, black has two moves. One is king e7 and one is king c6. If king e7, you give a check here, and the king goes f6, and then you go queen f7, and it is a checkmate. If the king goes to c6 like the game, then white gives another forcing check, which is queen c8, and now the king is forced to go to d5, and now queen b7 check. So it's like a nice little dance between the white's queen and the black's king, because white went to the slide square and then came here from b8, and black's king went here, 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 and now it's going to go to c4 because it has no other square. So king c4, and now queen e4 check, and king goes to c3, and now I'm pretty sure you would have figured out what the checkmate move is, right? It's queen c2, and the king started all the way from d7 over here. And if you look at the path of the king went here, 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 and it got checkmated. So a nice journey for the king, but eventually it got checkmated. So let's move on to the final example that I wanted to share with you. And I'm pretty sure you all know by now that final example is generally a puzzle that I give for you to solve so that you can, try to find it out on your own. And once you have the solution, please put it on the comments section, and we will check, and we'll let you know if you got the right answer or wrong. And this position, it's black to play. It's a very tough one, I will tell you that, because generally two knights on their own cannot deliver a checkmate. But an important feature is that if your opponent has a pawn, and specifically like how advanced the pawn is, can make a lot of difference. And in this position, another important factor is that this king is kind of boxed. It can't really escape. So because the knights are controlling key squares, and black's king is also very, very advanced, blockading a lot of exit squares for the white king. So there is a lot of winning chances for black. Actually, it's a forced win from here. But as I said, it's not an easy one. So do calculate as much as you can. So to the audience, take your time, try your best. And if you don't find it, don't worry. Watch our next video, as we will definitely have the solution included in that. So till then, I'd like to sign off, and also would like to request you to subscribe to the channel. Please press on the bell icon, and if you do have any suggestions or general comments on what other videos that you want to watch in the channel, do let us know in the comments. And bye bye everyone. Signing off, Priyadarshan.